You've seen it before in those cheesy disaster movies. A giant asteroid is hurtling toward Earth. The United States sends up the action hero equipped with nuclear weapons or some other equally implausible technology, and they succeed at the last moment in blowing the asteroid to smithereens, saving the planet Earth. But what would happen if something like that scenario played out in real life? Well, I have to tell you, if the movie features Bruce Willis, it's probably not a documentary, and the reality would be somewhat more complicated. Fortunately, NASA and its counterpart space agencies in other countries have been working on this problem for some time. And a couple of years ago, I was invited to join a group of international lawyers working on the legal aspects of this problem, what they call planetary defense. First, how likely is this scenario? Well, there are millions of asteroids out there, most of them located in the main belt between Mars and Jupiter, safely away from Earth. But every once in a while, gravity and other forces distort the orbits of those objects, and some of them approach close to Earth and become potentially hazardous. The Earth, like all other planets, is bombarded by asteroids all the time. Fortunately, most of them are quite small and burn up in the atmosphere. Every once in a while, an asteroid is bigger than that and manages to survive the passage through the atmosphere. Nobody's ever been struck by an asteroid, but there are some that have had significant effects on planet Earth. Here's a video of an asteroid that streaked across the skies above Chelyabinsk, a city in Russia, in 2013. It was a relatively small asteroid, about 60 feet across, and it exploded 20 miles up. But the force of the explosion damaged some 7,000 buildings and injured 1,500 people. Most conspicuous of all was the asteroid that struck 60 million years ago, just off what is now the Yucatan Peninsula. It triggered a global catastrophe that killed 70% of the species then living on Earth, including all the dinosaurs. Don't panic. Nobody sees anything like these large asteroids looming on the horizon today, but astronomers also acknowledge that we don't know all the asteroids that are out there. If we did detect a large incoming asteroid, the world has very little tested, proven, operational capability to do anything about it. And here's where we see the legal complications coming into play. One potential technique for trying to deflect an asteroid would involve the use of a nuclear explosive device, an adapted nuclear bomb. This is the option that's featured in most of those low-grade disaster movies, but it would not be anybody's first choice. But if the time were short and the asteroid were large, there may not be anything else that would work. There are two important treaties, both long-standing, both joined by most of the countries in the world, both tremendously important for security on Earth, that specifically forbid the placement of nuclear weapons in orbit and the use of nuclear explosions in space. These treaties were negotiated long ago with very different objectives in mind, so how are we going to deal with that problem too? Suppose there's an asteroid coming and we do try to deflect it, but we are only partially successful. So that instead of hitting country A, it hits country B. Country B has now suffered grave damage, and there's a treaty that imposes absolute liability if your space activity causes harm to another country. So overall, we're not quite there yet in terms of a solution to these issues, but we do know that it's better to try to think through these contingencies now rather than later when the pressure is on and the time is so limited.